So, Bill Clinton is mentioned in the Epstein files several times and was asked to testify. And I think that's legitimate. I think that's completely fair. And if he did nothing wrong, then that should be known. And if he did something wrong, that also should be known and there should be accountability. But apparently, according to Republicans, anybody mentioned in the Epstein file who's a Democrat should have to have their wives testify. Because that's exactly what Hillary Clinton did yesterday for over 6 hours. She's barely mentioned in the Epstein file. She has never known or met Epstein. There is nothing at all troubling about the ways in which she was mentioned on those rare occasions in which she was, which should lead us to this obvious question. When exactly is Melania going to testify? Let's dive in. Hello, everybody, and welcome to this evening's episode of Mary Trump Live. It is great to be here with you. I just want to remind you that as of Monday, we will be moving to 4 p.m. Eastern for the lives, and I truly hope you will be able to be there with us. So, the New York Times is reporting that Netflix has walked away from its deal to acquire Warner Brothers Discovery, clearing the path for technology heir David Ellison, that's son of Larry, to take control of the media company. Netflix said it would not increase its original $83 billion offer after Ellison's company, Paramount Skydance, submitted a revised $111 billion bid that Warner deemed superior. Well, obviously, because it's over $20 billion more. The deal would have given Netflix control of major assets, including HBO and the Warner Brothers Film Studio, further cementing its dominance in Hollywood. But Ellison's bid is financially backed by his father, Larry Ellison, the billionaire founder of Oracle. Oracle's a massive technology company that specializes in database software, cloud computing, and enterprise systems used by corporations and governments to store, manage, and process large amounts of data. Any acquisition would still require regulatory approval in the United States and Europe, including review by the Justice Department. Sorry, this is hysterical. Yeah, as if we think that this degraded and depraved Justice Department wouldn't approve what is something that should never be approved. If Paramount fails to secure those approvals, the only hope I have is it will fail to secure approvals in Europe. But clearly, the United States is going to go ahead and greenlight this. Netflix could potentially re-enter the process. If the Ellisons complete their planned merger, which I am sorry to report is probably going to happen, the result would be a sweeping consolidation of media and technology power within one family. The Ellisons, these two corrupt, clearly compromised people who have an agenda, would have influence over CBS, CNN, Warner Brothers, Paramount Pictures, HBO, and Oracle. And that's before considering Oracle's recent 15% stake in the company that operates TikTok's U.S. business. Taken together, that portfolio begins to rival the kind of concentrated media power the Murdoch family wielded at its peak. During the 2000s and 2010s, Rupert Murdoch controlled a Hollywood studio, the Fox Broadcast Network, Fox, FX, the New York Post, the Wall Street Journal, and Europe's Sky satellite television service. The scale of consolidation being discussed here is enormous. And a late-breaking update, Reuters is reporting that Warner Brothers Discovery has agreed to be acquired by Paramount Skydance. in a $110 billion deal signed this morning, according to an audio clip of a global town hall by the company. Bruce Campbell, Warner Brothers' chief revenue and strategy officer, said, quote, Netflix had the legal right to match the PSKY offer. As you all know, they ultimately decided not to do that. That then resulted in a signed agreement with PSKY as of this morning. So that's where everything stands, unquote. Well, that is not enough. Yes, that is where everything stands. But what does it mean? It means that increasingly the right is taking over our media. The right is determined to make sure that the American people do not get facts, do not know the truth. They are creating massive propaganda outlets that do nothing but churn out disinformation 24 hours a day. This kind of media consolidation, and again, we're talking about two people controlling a massive percentage of the media infrastructure in America. The real problem here, wealth. The unrestricted, unrestrained mass of wealth. The fact that people are that rich that they can acquire so much and control so much, that is the problem. If this country is going to survive, we need to confront the reality of wealth inequality. And we need to figure out a way to make sure that no one human being is ever allowed to be that obscenely wealthy. What about the FCC, you may ask? Well, let's see. The FCC allegedly regulates broadcasting, telecommunications, and broadband. Brendan Carr is the chair, a longtime FCC commissioner who was elevated to the chairmanship by Donald in November and who has since opened investigations into ABC, CBS, and NBC News for being mean to his boss, which is to say, by reporting facts about Donald. Curiously, there have been no investigations into Fox or any other right-leaning so-called news organizations. Carr wrote the FCC section of the Project 2025, the Heritage Foundation's fascist blueprint for reshaping the federal government during the Trump regime. In March of last year, Carr announced an investigation into Disney and ABC over what he described as DEI discrimination and opened separate probes into CBS and NBC News. Just as a reminder, DEI stands for diversity, equity, and inclusion. Carr has argued that broadcasters holding FCC licenses have a special obligation to operate in the public interest and has suggested that the agency has not enforced that obligation strongly enough. But here's the problem. What does that mean? Well, according to Carr, operating in the public interest means supporting Donald and, of course, making sure that white people have all the power. In July, Carr praised the Paramount Skydance merger as an opportunity to bring more balance to CBS. In the months since, with the appointment of the incompetent, execrable Barry Weiss, the once proud news division of the network has been reduced to a shadow of what it once was, simply a propaganda network. Then CBS canceled The Late Show with Stephen Colbert, who has all along been a fierce critic of Donald's, and they cited financial reasons, even though some observers questioned that explanation. And then, of course, came the Jimmy Kimmel controversy. Carr talked to Maria Bartiromo earlier today about what we can expect on our airwaves in the near future. Watch this.
Meanwhile, America is approaching its 250th birthday. Many patriots are seeking ways to celebrate the patriotism now spreading to on-air broadcasts. Mr. Chairman, you announced your Pledge America campaign, encouraging broadcasters to air more pro-America content, such as starting each day with the Star-Spangled Banner or the Pledge of Allegiance. Tell us more. What kind of a response are you getting?
We're in the midst of a great period of time here in D.C., a great revival, a golden age. Just this week, we had the State of the Union where President Trump, I mean, truly the political colossus of our time, showed the American people exactly why he's delivering these great results. Prices are down. Broadband prices are down 8 to 9%. Cell phone prices are down off Biden-era highs. And we're launching a Pledge America campaign at the FCC, which allows broadcasters to air pro-America patriotic programming to celebrate the country's 250th birth. The reaction has been interesting. Many broadcasters have embraced it. Some on the left push back. Apparently they have a problem with patriotic pro-America programming, but it's a good opportunity for broadcasters to let their viewers know exactly where they stand.
No, we have a problem with people like you traitor, you fascist, because this is fascism. This is fascism in 2026 in America. That is not patriotism. That is shoving down our throats their version, their dark, dark vision for this country's future. And we need to resist it with everything we have because it is illegitimate. And people like him, just like everybody else in the Trump regime, at some point is going to need to be held accountable. There needs to be some kind of truth and reconciliation. There needs to be some kind of Nuremberg trial. None of this can be allowed to stand. As I mentioned earlier, former President Bill Clinton sat for a closed-door deposition before Chairman James Comer's ridiculous and lopsided House Oversight Committee as part of its insincere and illegitimate investigation into Jeffrey Epstein. Clinton testified under oath, becoming the first sitting or former president in more than 4 decades to appear before members of Congress. Clinton told the Republican-led House Oversight Committee he, quote unquote, saw nothing and, quote unquote, did nothing wrong related to Epstein. He also criticized the panel for requiring his wife, Hillary Clinton, to sit for a deposition that, as I mentioned, lasted 6 hours. Bill Clinton acknowledged knowing and traveling with Epstein, but said his wife had, quote, nothing to do with Jeffrey Epstein, unquote, and no memory of meeting him. In a written statement, he argued that including her was unnecessary, saying, quote, whether you subpoenaed 10 people or 10,000, including her was simply not right, unquote. In Clinton's opening statement to the panel, which he later posted on Twitter, he addressed Epstein directly, saying, quote, as someone who grew up in a home with domestic abuse, not only would I not have flown on his plane if I had any inkling of what he was doing, I would have turned him in myself and led the call for justice for his crimes, unquote. He closed his statement by saying, quote, since I am under oath, I will not falsely state that I am looking forward to your questions, but I am ready to answer your questions to the best of my abilities, consistent with the facts as I know them, the legitimate, the logical, and even the outlandish. With that, Mr. Chairman, fire away, unquote. The closed-door deposition took place in Chappaqua, New York, one day after Hillary Clinton testified before the same committee. Comer called it historic, noting that no sitting or former president has testified. Yes, but that raises the question, why this one? Comer said transcripts and video of both sessions would be released, starting with Hillary Clinton's. Representative Robert Garcia, the committee's top Democrat, said that there are serious questions to ask, but again urged the panel to question Donald as well. Watch this.
So we are once again demanding that now President Trump, who is in the Epstein files almost more than anyone else besides Ghislaine Maxwell, answer our questions. This is not a hoax. He has not been exonerated, and we have serious questions for President Trump.
Okay. Almost more than anybody but Ghislaine Maxwell, and I assume also Jeffrey Epstein. I'm not entirely sure how there could be anybody else on the planet mentioned in the Epstein files more than the eponymous Jeffrey Epstein and his convicted co-conspirator Ghislaine Maxwell than Donald, because according to Democratic Representative Jamie Raskin, who is known for being a truth teller, Donald, in the 3 million documents that have been released thus far, which is only half of the total, has been mentioned more than 1 million times. I don't know about you, but even if every single one of those million mentions is an innocent one, he needs to answer to us. CNN is reporting that the U.S. has already passed 1,100 measles cases this year. As of February 26th, the CDC counted 1,136 cases in just the first 8 weeks. That's about 6 times what we would normally see in an entire year. Last year was already the worst in decades with nearly 2,300 cases, the highest total since 1991, and far above anything seen since measles was declared eliminated in 2000. 3 people died last year, 2 children in Texas, and 1 adult in New Mexico. All were unvaccinated. About 96% of this year's cases are among people who have not received the recommended MMR vaccine doses. More than 80% are children and teenagers, and about 1 in 4 cases involves children under 5. For those of you thinking, oh, what's the big deal? It's just measles. Measles is not a harmless illness. The CDC says about 1 in 1,000 infected children can develop brain swelling, and up to 3 in 1,000 can die. That doesn't seem like a risk worth taking, does it? Dr. Paul Offit, an infectious disease physician and director of the Vaccine Education Center at the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia, said, quote, that's in that range of 1 to 3 deaths per 1,000 cases. So can we expect another death? Yes. I think we're getting there where we can expect another death, and it is unconscionable. When more people are choosing not to vaccinate their children, you're going to see more disease, more suffering, more hospitalization, and more death, unquote. He continued, quote, children are dying from a vaccine preventable disease because their parents are choosing not to vaccinate them. And they're choosing not to vaccinate them because they fear the vaccine more than they fear the disease, unquote. More than half of U.S. states have reported cases already, and at least 3 large outbreaks are still growing. Health officials are warning this is likely to get worse. And this is what happens when you elect as your leaders people who are craven and ignorant and believe that being anti-science is going to help keep their base energized. They do not care if that results in the deaths of children. Vaccines like the MMR have changed the course of modern history. They have saved untold millions, tens of millions, perhaps hundreds of millions of lives. Diseases like polio and smallpox, which brought untold suffering to massive numbers of human beings, especially children, were eradicated because of vaccines developed through science. All of that is being reversed. And for what? Well, the people who don't give a shit whether your children live or die understand that the best way for them to cling to power, no matter how illegitimately, is to keep the rest of us so tired, so overworked, so poor, and so sick and so demoralized that we cannot fight back. We're going to fight back anyway. And for God's sakes, get your children vaccinated now while you still can. Well, that's not a fun note to end on. Let's breathe, shall we? So, the other thing that's going on is, as we know, the not just the partial release of the Epstein documents, but the fact that so many of those that have been released have been heavily redacted. So, in as an homage to that, or I should say, as a reminder of how dangerous that is, we are pulling back the black bars, so to speak, and telling the truth. So we've come up with the Mary Trump Media Redaction Collection, inspired by this corrupt, depraved DOJ's behavior vis-a-vis the Epstein files. And it's created to honor the victims by stripping away the lies, the cover-ups, and the spin that they're hoping we fall for. One design says it plainly. The Trump regime is lying to you. The other makes a verified, documented point. Donald J. Trump is in the Epstein files over 1 million times. This isn't just merch. This is wearable accountability. And we've got it on t-shirts, hoodies, long sleeve shirts, mugs, protest posters, cards. We even have a bandana for your pets. So head to the Mary Trump Media Shopify store now at shop.marytrumpmedia.com. And also, I just want to say thank you so much for your patience with the playing cards. We had some fulfillment issues, but everything's squared away. And all of those cards should be going out by the beginning of the week. That should not change, but in the event it does, we'll keep you posted. But you should have them within the next week or two. So wear the truth, support independent media, and always thank you so much for being part of this community. Now, I think we need to breathe again because holy cow. And thankfully, it's Friday. We actually made it. And it's time for the last emotional support moment of the week. And a quick reminder, I'll remind you again at the end, but a quick reminder, as of Monday, we will be doing Mary Trump Live at 4 p.m. Eastern time. For now, let's slide beneath the surface and find a little bit of peace and tranquility. I kind of needed that. I can we play that a few thousand more times? No. All right. I'm just gonna have to go watch it later on my own. I have a thing, so I've got to get going. But one of the reasons we're switching times next week is so that I don't have to skip out before you're getting to your comments and questions. I just have a lot of evening hits and interviews and obligations. Because you may have heard we have a midterms coming up, and there is a lot going on, and I will catch you up on all of it. But again, next week, starting Monday, Mary Trump Live, 4 p.m. Eastern, Monday through Friday. Do not forget, we have videos dropping every single day. Please watch them, like them, share them, comment on them, because to the degree that anything helps us on YouTube, that does. And of course, subscribe to Mary Trump Media channel. Also, check out our Substack, The Good in Us. That is a great place for you guys to start hanging out as well. And again, I'm so sorry to cut it short, but I've got to get going. Thank you always for being here, for supporting us, for everything you do. Have an amazing weekend. Truly, just unplug, because it's not going to slow down from here. So give yourselves a break. Go to a museum. Go for a walk in the woods or on the beach or on a mountain or in the desert. Read a book, write a poem, paint a painting, play the guitar, do something for yourself. Something creative, something cool, something that is going to feed your soul. have dinner with friends, go to the movies, whatever it is. All right. Again, thank you so much for everything you do and for being here. We will see you Monday at 4 p.m. Eastern for Mary Trump Live. In the meantime, everybody, please stay safe and be kind.